To win at galactic warfare takes risk, determination, and most of all, the strategic mind of a brilliant military genius.
I lose again!
StarCraft, all-out war on N64.
Loser!
Rated T.
Alright, welcome back to HC Games, and for anybody new to the channel, I'm a massive StarCraft fan. I think anybody that's not new to the channel probably is sick to death of me talking about StarCraft. But I did want to do something different today in relation to StarCraft, and that is to compare the 64 version with the PC 98 original. Now, what I did here in order to keep this as close as possible is I used the PC version, which is the remastered version, but I disabled the HD graphics because that is an option within the menu itself. So to give it a fair judgment and a fair comparison, that's what I've done. So as you can see, if you have remastered, you can go into the options menu and you can essentially disable the HD graphics, which pretty much reverts it back to its standard definition as it was in 98, which I find really cool in the remastered version that you have those options. So I want to get this straight out of the way here first. This is an incredibly impressive port of the PC game StarCraft on the N64. I would nearly put it in line with how impressive the Resident Evil 2 N64 port as well. It's of that caliber. So I think content-wise first is what I look at here. This includes StarCraft and Brood Wars in the one cart, and there's literally 6 campaigns included on the one cart, which is approximately, I think, 78 missions. So that in itself to me is really, really impressive. So for the comparison, to try and keep it as close as possible, I'm going to pick the mission First Strike, which is the first level in the second Terran campaign of Brood War. So when you start up the mission, you will notice straight away that the prologue introduction for each campaign is present, and this is kind of 2 paragraphs to explain the start of each campaign.
Adjutant online. Good morning, Captain. Our long voyage from Earth is over, and we are holding a stationary position near the borders of Dominion space. I trust that the effects from your long, cold sleep have worn off by now.
Now, the first limitation you're going to see is that it doesn't have the voiceovers for the objectives and or each introduction to each mission. They are not spoken in the 64 version. And look, we got to look at the limitations here. It's a 32 meg cart, and it does make use of the expansion pack on the Nintendo 64. But I can understand the team mass media, why they made the decision to remove that type of audio, because there's just too much of dialogue, and especially within the 6 campaigns, and it would have never fitted into the cart. So they were selective which audio they picked. And I think crucially they picked what is ultimately most important for a StarCraft experience, which is the musical score and obviously the unit sounds, which are just iconic in StarCraft.
Yes, sir? Give me some of this shit. Let's move on a piece of me. Identify target. Yes, sir?
Now, for real-time strategy purists, I know preferably you're always going to be playing on PC, but when they're done in console right, they can be extremely fun to play as well. So 2 recommendations straight away here is to set the game speed to the center selection, and then also to increase the cursor speed, probably to 80% or even maximum. The reason being is you're going to be using the Nintendo 64 control stick a lot to navigate across the map. The default speed just isn't high enough, so turn it up to the last really, and then it becomes way easier to navigate the screen.
Crap. This landed site doesn't have any gas. Guess we'd better start looking for another geyser.
So again, as I mentioned earlier, even through the missions themselves, the voiceover has just been replaced with text paragraphs. But again, I think that's acceptable given the limitations of the cart. Now, other than the sound limitations, I think, in fairness, it's a very, very accurate reflection of where the level was designed in PC. So you can see here, I've just done a quick side-by-side to show guys exactly maybe the first area of this map, that the layout is pretty much identical to that of the PC. Now, if you look at the screen in general, the navigation has been stripped back to a more transparent feel in N64, and I think this makes total sense rather than having a permanent interaction bar at the bottom of the screen like you would in the PC, because essentially you're not using the mouse to navigate and control. So that really leads us into one of the most important aspects of this port. How does the game actually feel to control on the Nintendo 64? So let's talk about limitation 1 first. I find the N64 controller in general not to be very, very good. However, However, for certain games, I really like using this controller, and this game is definitely up there. The other game I can think of that really used the controller to its strengths was Lilat Wars, or in the US it's referred to as Star Fox 64. Now, critically, access to menus is handled really well on this controller. So by simply hitting the RB button plus the main trigger button with your index finger, you can bring up a really quick menu which allows you to access all the build menus and all the upgrades and your units, which ultimately speeds up the process of play. Now, the other well-implemented control feature is the use of the RB button for unit selection. Essentially, you can cycle through your units or select all your units that are visible on screen by tapping the RB button, and if you tap it again, it'll cycle, maybe select the Marines this time, or if you tap it again, it'll select your build units or your tanks. So again, a very simple but effective method of selecting your units quickly. And in this case here, I'm just going to showcase some actual action in this. The other cool feature, and this isn't actually present in the PC version at all, is if you use the green button to move your units, they will actually perform an attack move. So an attack move essentially in RTS games means is the units will move to the position you indicate on the cursor. However, on the way to that path, they will automatically attack enemies as they're navigating. So that isn't actually present in the PC version. You can move your units and you can attack individual units, but you cannot carry out forward an attack move. Now, you could bypass that in the PC by using the patrol command. Patrol command isn't actually available, not that I understand, in the N64 version, but the attack move essentially is also another easy method of giving an army a quick command to attack a particular base, while you can go back and concentrate essentially on continuing to build up your base. So another very good and intuitive move in regards to the control scheme on the N64. And speaking about going back to your base quickly, rather than using the C stick, you can essentially tap the LB button this time to actually go back automatically to the last selected building, which ultimately will bring you back to your base, which again, another really cool and intuitive move in regards to the control scheme for the N64. Again, for strategy games, it's all about speed of your build queues and at the same time being able to attack enemy bases. Moving on, and lastly to cover in this comparison video, is graphics and audio fidelity, 64 versus PC in this case. And what I wanted everybody to see right now is the game in motion when there's heavy action going on, and you can clearly see and hear it still looks really good on the N64. Obviously, bar it, the fact is, has a lower resolution and maybe the colors aren't as bright as they would be on the PC version, but all the audio is present. The general audio, as in the unit audio, the unit sounds, the explosions, the gunfire. I think it's really well done here on the N64. Again, harping back to the limitations of the cart. And when we take a look at the PC version, yes, you can clearly hear the difference in the audio quality, because you're going to get 32-bit sound on the PC. You're not getting that on this cart. But the fact that the majority of the animations, the sounds, are pretty much all present on the N64 cart just amazes me, really. Overall, and just looking at this whole port in general on the N64, I think this is a technical marvel. It's incredible that they've managed to pack essentially that StarCraft feeling into cart form on the N64. Again, reminding me that this is something very similar to what they've accomplished on the N64 version of Resident Evil 2. And what I would say about StarCraft 64 is, if you're a console player and you like to play games on the couch and you want to get a feel for RTS games, there's no better choice than picking StarCraft, and in particular this port. What I would say, however, is if you're going to get it for the N64, repro this only, because the original carts are just stupidly expensive. Anyway guys, that's it for another comparison video. Please share your thoughts on this video down below. I put a lot of energy and effort into these ones. They take a lot of time to put together. And anybody new to the channel and you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. I'll talk to you in the next video. Thanks for watching.